Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting.
I'm Tyler Bishop, and you know that.
And I'm Jena Bishop.
And you probably know that too.
Mm-hmm.
You would know that especially from a lot of the memes recently. If you follow me on Instagram,
if you follow you on Instagram, you know who you are already. So
it's true. It's a great point. But yeah, you're Jena Bishop from the memes.
That's what I'm from.
The memes about how people won't fight you.
I know, it's so frustrating.
Yeah,
Just want to fight, man. Just want to fight.
I mean,
all these girls keep dodging me.
We keep trying to come up with like clever marketing schemes to try to get people to fight you. Like we were thinking about like funny ways that we could raise money so that we could basically just pay your opponent more.
Yeah,
it's a weird position to be in, I think.
I don't know. Like I just want to like at least get this first one done. And I it sucks because I feel like all the time people are like, oh, when'd you fight? And asking me all the time. And then I was like, I don't know. Nobody will fight me. So I wish I had fight announcement. I wish I could tell you guys that I was fighting soon. But I'm not fighting MMA soon. But I am scheduled to fight a no-gi jiu-jitsu match soon.
Woo!
So at least I can compete because I'm dying to compete right now.
And so do you have the details to give to everybody?
I'm supposed to be fighting on Fight to Win June 18th.
June 18th against
Luana Alzagir.
That's right. And that'll be exciting because I think partially you've been thinking you were going to compete since February. And that's part of the reason for the memes is like to just try to get somebody that wants to step up and actually fight, which is a weird thing to be a position to be in, to be like, look, I'm a legitimate professional fighter, so much so that like I'm 0-0 and someone won't take a fight against me. And
I've talked to some of my friends that fight MMA that transitioned from jiu-jitsu to MMA and was like, how did you get your first fight? Like, you're really, really good at jiu-jitsu. So
use the fake name.
Yeah. One of my friends has a nickname now and changed her name because her wrestling credentials were too good and people didn't want to fight her. And then another one just had a lot of media hype behind her. So people were like,
I'll take her. Trying
to call her out. So I either need to just start acting like all thoughty on Instagram and get some media behind me, or I don't know. And everybody keeps telling me I should call somebody out, but it's just like not my style. Like I like to talk trash, like I like to do that, but like to my friends, like in person,
in
like,
good fun.
Like just having fun. Like I don't like to do it like.
People would think that you're.
Who I am.
Well, we joke around because we call you the truth because, like, you tell people the truth. And sometimes that's not always super pretty.
Well, only if I like you. Only if you're friends with me.
And that's my point. Is like I think that can get mistaken.
If you're
sometimes.
Trash and I don't like you, I'm never gonna tell you that.
Yeah, that's the point. It's never mean spirited unless it's like totally meant to be. It's not meant to be like passive aggressively cutting deep. And that's like one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit was just because like I think it's weird because I think you are in a position to where it's like you should just call somebody out, like call out some of these girls that like should be.
I'm gonna have to have you call people out for me because that's usually what I do. Tyler's good at like all the trash talk and like it's not like you're a trash talker, but you don't mind being like over the top like on social media, and that's just like not really like my style, but I'll let you do it for me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's a good thing that I don't take full control because I would make you a heel. I'd be like, it's easier to be a bad guy, Jena. You just got to lean into it.
It's not who I am.
Yeah, you need to just start, like, burning flags or something. Really
what?
get...
No, God, you're just going like... See, and this is the problem. And this is why we make a good pair and... Like, we work as a couple because it's a balance thing. We have to balance each other out. Yeah, it's like,
no, trust me. People are going to be really, really galvanized by the fact that you're burning flags. They're going to hate you, but that's why they'll buy the pay-per-view. Yeah. And you're like, no, we can't burn a flag. We are American, Tyler. That's not a good thing. And I'd be like, you know what? I think in this case, in this rare case, you're right.
This rare case. You have to tell me I'm right all the time. Just saying.
Title of this episode, Burning Flags.
No.
On Memorial Day weekend.
I know. Wow. Just no respect.
I think that's what the one thing that came to my mind is because there's like flags up everywhere. It's like Memorial Day. Everybody's like puts the little flags in the ground or whatever. But it's like one thing I think about all the time when I see flags everywhere. It's like you're not supposed to like let the flag touch the ground. That's the thing. I'm like, there's no way. There's so many flags up. Some of these people, they're like technically they think they're being all patriotic, but nah, those flags are touching grounds.
Yeah, is that just an American thing?
I don't know. I have a feeling it almost can't be. Like, America is a new country. Like, I feel like that's some, like, old stuff.
Yeah, but I feel like you see, like, a lot of other, like, athletes, like, with their flag, like, celebrating and stuff, but then, like, it, like, gets thrown on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that in American athletics, too. But usually, we're pretty well PR'd up to where they're like, do not let that flag touch the ground. I'd rather you blow both your ACLs than, like, let that flag touch the ground. Those people that don't like kneeling for the national anthem, they won't have it. They're going to be vocal.
That's true.
But yeah, it's one of those weird things where it's like, you know, how do you call somebody out if, you know, like in a respectful way? It's not really respectful, like... not like, respectful. Hey, that's the wrong word.
All of you flyweights out there haven't seen a single one with good jiu-jitsu. It's trash. You're garbage. Show me otherwise.
Cut the promo. I'm gonna clip that. But yeah, that's the thing is it's been frustrating from that perspective because, you know, I was really self-conscious about this when I started fighting MMA, where when I would be training and I would train with like a black belt nogi and we'd be doing MMA practice or something and they would just like easily handle me because when I started I was a like 3-stripe white belt or whatever, and then, you know, like most of the time that I was training MMA I was a blue belt, purple belt at the end.
Yeah. Blue belt.
Purple belt at the end, but like that's the thing is like black belt is one of those things where it's like, you know, you easily handle a blue belt or purple belt, and I just remember always thinking like, man, am I good enough to beat like a black belt though? You know, like no. So like I was always kind of self-conscious about that in the back of my mind, to where it was like, you know, I'm gonna have to be this good to ride this ride. Yeah. And I used to always frustrate me to no end, and you've heard me talk about this before, but like, you know, when somebody signs up as a pro MMA fighter and they're like, I want to get in that cage, it's like you're the one that's signing up to be a professional athlete today that says, I want to be the best in the world. Yeah. If that's not your goal, like, why are you getting in there? And number two, like, if you are going to sign up and be that person, like, who are you to turn down, like, a fight, especially, like, on the come up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I understand people turning down fights, like, because everybody's trying to, like, pad their record and protect their record. But, like, if we're both, you know, if somebody has, like, a few fights under their belt already and you don't think that you're good, like, I don't know. I just don't understand why you wouldn't want to, like, take that fight or whatever.
You're not good enough to be an 0-0 fighter? Well, yeah, she's, like, really good at jiu-jitsu.
Like, a very unproven. Like, I don't even have any amateur fights, so it's, like, I'm unproven. Like,
well, that's the thing too, where it's like, oh well, you know, she's a really accomplished black belt, very well credentialed. Why would we take that fight? That's going to be a difficult one. And to that, I would say, well, look, she's 0-0. Like, she's very unproven in every other facet of MMA. Like, she's not credentialed in Muay Thai or wrestling. So, like, you know, why wouldn't you fight this girl? She probably has garbage wrestling. You should try to take her down.
Me? I have garbage.
That's wrestling? What I would say to the girl.
Yeah. Wrestling's garbage.
She refuses to train it, and for that reason, it's her weakness.
My wrestling and my striking, garbage. All I have is jiu-jitsu, people.
Yep.
All. That's all I have.
So I don't know. It's it's weird because like I'm
just getting sad right now.
Yeah, well,
because I feel like this is my whole like I don't know. This is like what I've been doing since. I mean, I decided I wanted to do this in September?
Yeah.
Like September, October of last year.
Yeah, September is kind of whenever we talked about it quite a bit.
Talked about it in October, really like started training.
The podcast has been around for this journey, you know? Like the podcast was here before you were training in MMA. You guys were the OGs.
We've been talking about it for a long time, and then, you know, I've had all these promises of fighting, like, you're going to fight this date, in this date, since February. The first date was in February. We're in June now, and now I still don't have anything lined up.
got a manager, got a contract. Like, what else do you need? And that's the thing is like...
I don't know. I'm just sad because I'm training really hard all the time. I'm not training hard, actually.
She's not
training at all.
Doesn't train wrestling or striking. Doesn't train.
I've just been training jiu-jitsu.
Depressed. Sitting at home, mainly just not training.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be honest with you,
I'm only training with my
she'll
kids.
make the weight, but it's just because she's lost so much muscle mass. You know?
Yeah. Fading away over here.
I almost said, like, she's really out of shape. She probably won't even make the weight, but I don't want them to be like, oh, she's going to be real big, you know? So I got to let them know, like, oh, she's going to make weight, but she's going to be skinny.
I might have to move down to straw weight at this point.
She's going to be all skinny fat, you know?
Yeah. Softy soft.
But, yeah, it's interesting because a lot of it comes back to the fact that it's like, you know, people believe in and see... you know, someone that's really good, and it's like, well, you have the credentials to back it up or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there's like a lot of things I feel like, you know, especially in MMA, but like all prize fighting, where it's like, you know, we were talking about this earlier, but like Rory McDonald, I think recently said this, and Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson have talked about it, but like, you know, they both fight in one, and then Rory obviously in the PFL now, and they're like, look, the guys that we're fighting here, these guys are really tough. They're nightmares, you know, but they're just not in the UFC. And it's one of those things where it's like in jiu-jitsu too, where it's like there's dudes that are out there that are really, really good, and the people that train with them or the people that know or have to compete against them know that, but because they don't quite get the same like push or
maybe don't have the means or the opportunity, you know? Like, that's a big part of it, too. Like, there's always a thing where it's like, I've always wanted to go compete in Brazil because it's like, not everybody can get a visa to come compete at the Worlds here in the States. So, you know, like, who knows who's out there that, like, is just really good, training all the time, that kind of a thing. And you hear about these people, like, all the time. And eventually, I think some of them get the opportunities to come compete, but... in
jiu-jitsu, I would make the argument that I mean I heard that for forever, and I know that there's a certain amount of truth to that, especially in some of the older guys. I feel like
nowadays, the U.S. is definitely probably.
Well, my point is like I think the guys that are really, really talented now, because jiu-jitsu is what it is. Like those guys, they're here, like competing against the other guys. Like somebody gets them, takes them to a big team, gets them here, whatever. You know, they get sponsored or affiliated somehow with like a project that magically like transports them here, and they get to live with like a family. Yeah. Anyways, I'm like,
yeah, you're going off. Like, we don't need to know the details. They're here.
They perhaps go to a specialized academy.
Hey, we're done. Move on.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, you do have this competition that's out there, and a lot of times it comes back to A, how somebody promotes himself, or B, just like you said, the opportunities. Because sometimes you get opportunities and then you get like media attention or just like social media attention that gets behind you. And then, you know, next thing you know, like people on the Joe Rogan show are saying like, well,
you're the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. And it's like,
I think, you know, that happened to me a lot when I was coming up in jiu-jitsu. There were a handful of girls and we were all like at the same rank and like level, and you know, a lot of them I had beaten or like had really like, we were like back and forth of just really like closely matched. But there was like a couple of girls that just got, for whatever reason, they were just, I don't know why, but all the jiu-jitsu media was like hyping them up all the time, like covering all their matches. They get like preferential treatment in brackets and in like all these different ways, and I'm just like, why is it them? Like, I've beat that person, or I've like done really well against this person, and I'm always been like really competitive with all these people, and that it was never like for me, partially because the team that I was on like didn't allow that to happen.
Allegedly.
But like also, but it's just like the media, like they pick their favorites, and so you kind of have this like we've talked about this before, like you and I have said, like it's what's the word I'm looking for, like a self-fulfilled prophecy, like type thing, where it's like, oh well, these are the ones that get the clicks and the likes, and it's like, well, those are because that's the people who you're hyping. Like honestly, like
it's who people know because they've been given like due attention.
You've been given that. Yes, it's like those are the people that are hyped, and then there's always going to be the people that are undeniable. You know that. But even still, man, like there's some of those guys that are undeniable and they don't get the press coverage. They don't get the hype, and I don't understand it. Like at least just cover them, you know?
Yeah.
Like at least.
I mean,
like Tanquino, like
oh man,
like somebody who's like
that's a great example. I was gonna give somebody else, but
he beat Rafa Mendes, like
fought in the UFC, ADCC champion.
Yeah, won ADCC. It's like. Anyone knows about him.
He's won Abu Dhabi Pro. Like he's got every credential.
It's like,
and he's like beat Rafa Mendes in his prime. Like this dude like does not get his due. I think part of it's his style. Like it's not the most exciting in the world, but like
I think a lot of it has to do with like personalities too. It's like the people who are like talking trash or like really exciting. Which although I would say like. The Mendes brothers, like, they've always been hyped, but, like, they're not, like, a overly, like, they don't have, like, huge personalities in one way or another.
I think for them it was
but they're just so dominant, it's insane.
Yeah, dominant and also revolutionary in the way that they innovated in jiu-jitsu. I think people just saw and, like, copied their style for a long time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, with that being said, I think, you've got this, you mentioned... Like I always talk about it being a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's one of those things that it's like the Gordon Ryan thing here recently is like I actually think Gordon Ryan is probably the best right now no-gi. I mean I know he's like taking a break or whatever because he's stomach thing or whatever, but the thing is like to have somebody like Joe Rogan
to keep saying like he's the GOAT. It's like you can't say he's the greatest of all time. Like he's in his prime. And he's beating everybody, but like there have been other guys that have done the same thing, and they've done it on multiple like rule sets and gi and no gi and all this stuff. Like there's like just a lot more to back it up.
It's like, and now people want to be like, well, look, it's the greatest no gi grappler of all time, and that's cool or whatever. But it's like you said, in the period of time, it makes a difference because like. When Hodger was fighting, there wasn't like this no-gi specialization that there is now. No. Like you don't have the chance to like build on top of the shoulders of the other people. You just have to be great, right?
Just here recently, like no-gi and gi have really diverged into like almost two different sports in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I heard Craig Jones I think it was him that said like it's kind of forked. He said that's why he stopped training the gi is like jiu-jitsu kind of like took a fork where it's like gi and no gi and
because the gi is very specialized and then no gi was very specialized and it's like more leg locks and different things like that, but I
mean Hamalo was at the academy a while back and he was kind of talking about that, like about how just he claimed that he was like, I'm a purple belt no-gi now. And I'm like, you're ADCC champion. I don't think you're a purple belt no-gi. But I knew what he was saying. He was
understand the sentiment.
Yeah, it's like no-gi now. It's like the game is just so different. He's just like, my expertise in that game is not as like what it was whenever, I was competing in ADCC or whatever.
And I think you've always seen that where it's like, there's a certain type of athlete that's done well gi versus no gi, like
for sure.
It's like you can almost see like the style, but of somebody. Which although I will say this, like Mikey Musmeshi, like he just competed in like a no gi like this weekend, and he heel hooked somebody, and like his game is just very much a gi game, and then to see him like go out and do like no gi. And he's saying, like, he hasn't really trained a lot of no-gi. Like, he's just starting to do it. And he's, like, can be really dominant against, like, a really tough competitor. It's, like, that takes a certain type of person that's, like, very... He's so disciplined and so skilled in, like...
I actually think he's really special in his style of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, I think that he's innovated in, like... Obviously, like his body
type. He's like OCD about like the way, and this is just like from what I see on social media, like the way he trains and studies and like that kind of thing. I think that kind of helps him.
I remember talking to Robert Drysdale a little bit about him, and he was like, yeah, he's just very, very particular about all his techniques. You know, he can obviously move and do things that other people just can't. Like, he can kind of do that thing that Hoyler does where he squats down, his butt touches the mat, and his heels are on the floor.
Like stupid flexible.
Yeah, but like even with that, it's like to have those tools and then to be doing techniques like just differently than everybody else. Like, that's an innovator. You know, that's somebody that is a trailblazer in a lot of ways. And so, like you said, like, you know, this is somebody that's doing good on both sides of the competition. And there's a lot of examples of that. Hanato Canuto, I think, is somebody that's like, you know, like a couple years ago at the Worlds, he ended up losing to Lucas Lepre. But like before that, it was like, you know, the year before, everybody knew him as like the spider guard guy, you know, whatever. And then all of a sudden he comes out and he's got amazing judo. He's throwing people. Like, he threw Lepre, and the most impressive thing about it was like beautiful throw. And then Lucas just cartwheels. Yes. And he's just like, easy cartwheel. Like, no advantage because like I made this look like I was having a good time in the middle.
That's like, that's something that like is because he's such a seasoned and really good competitor. I was talking about this with somebody the other day in training where it's like you have to, especially on like the wrestling and like takedown game. I mean, it applies in a lot of things, sweeps and everything, where it's like you have to realize the point where fighting against this person is only going to hurt you. Like, they've got so deep into a position to where if you can go with it, you can use the momentum against them. And like that takes a lot of skill and reps, and like that timing is just has to be impeccable to be able to pull that stuff off.
That's where you train those instincts, you know. It's like the way I always like I've tried to surf one time in my life, never actually done something that I would call surfing, but I would always tell people it's like, I imagine it's like surfing.
I imagine.
But it's just one of those things where it's like after you do, it's like driving a car where it's like after you do something long enough, it just seems automatic. You don't have to think to yourself like, right turn a little bit more, not quite turned enough. You just make the turn because you've done it so many times. Like you're comfortable with it, and that's how I feel like doing a triangle or whatever. And it's one of those things where it's like to be like loose enough and just like trained enough to where it's like somebody goes for a throw and you reverse it immediately because in feeling it, you know exactly the right way to handle the momentum.
And you feel like where your opponent's weight is positioned to take advantage of that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things, like you said, you have to be like this seasoned veteran. And, you know, I really appreciate watching guys like Nate Diaz or George Masvidal like succeed now, partially because I think about like, man, you think about now I know how long I've been doing jiu-jitsu and I know how long like they've been training and like competing in MMA or just like fighting.
Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Great example of that.
Yeah, really great example.
Just got finally, and it's like, man, this guy, he's been competing in jiu-jitsu along with fighting in MMA for years and just recently gotten like opportunity to be
and I think
where
that
he should be.
Those are the success stories of people that sort of like, you know, it was like George was a journeyman before he like kind of broke out with he got like a viral quote where he was like 3-piece and a soda. You remember that?
What?
It was like a viral thing. Like he'd actually fought in London. I think he knocked out Darren Till, maybe. But afterwards, him and Leon Edwards, who they've actually never fought, which is crazy because it was the thing that kind of broke him out. He wanted to fight Ben Askren because Ben Askren had come to the UFC, talked a bunch of trash, and then George Masvidal, him and Edwards got into it, and they asked Masvidal about it, and he was like, yeah, you know, I gave backstage, I gave him 3-piece and a soda, and it was like he hit him with like a 3-punch combo, is what he was saying. Were you not aware of that?
No. And then maybe I was, but like I pay half attention sometimes.
And then he goes and he flying knee knocks out Ben Askren in like 5 seconds. They're like, who is this guy? He's entertaining. He talks about like giving people 3 pieces and a soda. He's flying knee people in this like clever way. And it's like, yeah, he was fighting people in like Kimbo's backyard, you know, 15 years ago, and he's this guy with a salty MMA record. But finally those skills are so sharp and he's such a veteran that he's so comfortable in there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make him unbeatable, but like now he's finally getting some recognition for those skills. Same thing with Nate Diaz. Like the Diaz brothers were around forever. Like people in martial arts knew them as kind of like these characters, but like they weren't popular the way that they became like after Diaz had his thing with Conor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just trying to think. I'm sorry. Like it seems like I'm not like responding, but I was trying to think of were they though? Because like I feel like I always liked them before that.
Yeah, but you like real people. I ain't trying to do much talking before we fight.
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, Nick Diaz, they asked him something. He's like, I don't know, what do you want me to say? Like, we're going to fight, so I guess we're going to find out. Can we just stop talking now? And it's like, that's what I think his brain is.
Perfect.
I think that's what his brain is like always thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to talk. Like, can we just fight now?
Let's just like figure it out in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the Diaz brothers, somebody had called him out recently. He's like, no, we ain't got to have a fight. There ain't going to be no money. You can just show up to the academy. And it's like, that's somebody that's like, is one of two things. And I really appreciate this. This is what we were talking about earlier with calling somebody out. It's like, when do you deserve it? There's a time whenever you become a prize fighter. It's like, you know, if you're Nate Diaz or someone, like there's a business involved. So you have to be a businessman. Mm-hmm. But if you want to fight somebody, like really want to fight somebody, it's like, well, then we don't need to have business involved. Like we can have a fight. Yeah. You know, like if you think you're better than me,
come through. We'll figure it out.
It's like, it doesn't take, it's not hard for us to figure this out. We don't need to train for 8 weeks for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I love them so much. Specifically Nate, but.
Met him at a Whole Foods. Had a 5-minute conversation that was super awkward.
No, it wasn't. You're being weird.
It wasn't weird for you.
No, I was just like trying not to be like total fangirl.
But yeah, I think, I mean, it's weird because, you know, these are people that have been around for a long time, didn't necessarily get the hype along the way up. But then you have kind of the opposite sometimes where you have somebody who's like, why is this person that's like popular for like dancing in the ring? Why is she getting like all this hype? And with women, I can kind of get some of it because I'm like, oh no, she's like attractive. So we're going to like, and she's also like playing into that on her social media. So like, let's like play into that. Like there's an audience that's going to really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But it's not always just that. Like, I mean, with dudes, it's not that, right?
Yeah, but it's yeah, I mean, it's not like
unless you're Sage Northcutt and you're just delicious.
Ew, that was so gross.
I know.
Because he's not. He's just in really good shape.
Yeah, he looks like Moose Schrock, who's a friend of the show.
Moose Schrock.
Moose Schrock, Nick Schrock, a friend of the show. He has an older brother that basically, or younger, actually. Older brother that looks exactly like Sage Northcutt. They might be like long lost brothers.
Yeah.
The Northcutts and the Schrocks, the Mooses.
Anyway, no, I think for guys it's not based on looks as much, but like personality and trash talking. Like you're either being like wildly like crazy with the way that you're saying things, like you have to make yourself the heel, like, or you have to be just like this over the top personality in a lot of ways. Because we were talking about talking about Stipe, and it's like he's somebody who has just been so dominant and has like more like he had like more like finishes in as a heavyweight or whatever. I don't know what the stats were.
He had more wins in a row than any UFC heavyweight champion ever, but I think he has the most UFC heavyweight title wins too. So it's like,
which is like
the most dominant.
It's like one of the most dominant heavyweights that there ever was. But it's just like he like barely gets like hyped.
And honestly, you want to talk about all time? You look at his record. Look at his record and his accomplishments. Argument for greatest heavyweight of all time.
Yeah, 100%. But like he doesn't, for whatever reason, he doesn't get like the credit. Like that's what the first thing that happened. Like when he lost to Ngannou, and they were talking about, Ngannou's going to fight this and this person next, and they're talking about John Jones and all this other stuff. But I'm like, but how does Stipe not get an immediate rematch? Like, did he say he wanted to retire? Did he say he's done fighting? Because I don't understand. He beat Ngannou already one time. So it should be like the trilogy, you know? And it was like all title fights. So it's like, why is this guy not getting that chance?
You know, it's one of those things too where
and I think he's super likable. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think too, like, I don't get why you wouldn't think he, like I told you earlier, and no offense, but like it's one of those things where I was like, he seems like every UFC fan. He's like a middle-aged guy that's like a firefighter, you know?
Yeah. From like the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like
So he seems to me like the guy that you would, you know, find like very relatable or whatever. But for whatever reason, it's like
every person like watching is like, I could be a UFC fighter. I'm just like Stipe.
But I do think that there is something aesthetic about it because, like, while, like you said, I'll be an Instagram thought.
Is it because his hair like gets like weird when he takes his hat off?
No, I think that's a new thing. I think it's just his haircut now.
The last couple of fights, it's been
it's like he clearly didn't care. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think if you're a dude and you're bodied, like you just like jacked like Yoel Romero or something, it's like if you look like an action figure and you're like good, like I think you can get especially hyped more so than a dude that's like, you know, looks like an in shape guy that might also like work part time at a gas station.
Yeah. I mean, what's his name? Why am I blanking? Definitely not in shape. Derek Lewis. Like, he's somebody, it's just like, didn't really like, he just has like crazy knockout power, but like, first came on the scene and everybody is like hyping him like crazy because he just says wild things.
My balls was hot.
Yeah, and it's just like, you say something crazy and get the attention, and now it's like he's getting title fights. Like, he got a title fight when he didn't deserve a title fight. In my opinion. That's just like my opinion. Like, just because he had like this hype around him.
I mean, I think at the time too, he was just sort of like, yeah, let me get this money.
Yeah, I think he was very, very open about that. Like, not even thinking he was ready, but like, I'm gonna get paid. Like,
well, like even for this title fight, like whenever John Jones was like, "Yeah, I'll do this title fight, but you're gonna have to pay me $8 million," and then Derek Lewis is on Twitter and he's like, "Dana White, I'll do it for $4 million." Like it's like I'll do it for half that, man. Like discount.
And he's somebody that's, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the hype because I think he's improved himself as a fighter. He's like crazy dangerous to anyone that he steps in the ring with because of his power, but like he's not like. He wasn't a seasoned veteran. He wasn't a like crazy technician or anything like that. Like he just had like, you know,
this wild personality. He's a very unique person. He's super entertaining. It's like I'll watch him talk about just about anything because you never know what he's gonna say.
Yeah, but he's also not in the argument of like the greatest of all time.
No,
and that was kind of
and most likely never will be.
Yeah, but that's the thing we were talking about is like a lot of these greats. People start saying they're like the greatest of all time and giving that recognition because they're really dominant in a time period. And it's like, you know, everybody we've talked about it too, is like with like Jordan and Kobe and, you know, LeBron and all that stuff. And LeBron really like shoots himself in the foot because he tries to say he's the greatest of all time. And it's like, you can't validate yourself as the greatest of all time. Like as my dad, Kevin French, would always say, like, if you're cool, you don't have to tell people you're cool. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of like such a thing that I live by. It's like, I don't have to tell people about like how great I am. Like, if they want to, like, they'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and I think that's one of those things where it's like, that's a Diaz brother, that's a Charles Oliveira, that's a George Masvidal. Like, you know, they're not going to tell people. And you know what? Closed mouths don't get fed.
And that's what sucks. Yeah.
And the fight game isn't always necessarily merit-based. You know, we've talked about this before in jiu-jitsu, but like, you can be undeniable, but sometimes, you know, that can take a really long time. And even then, it's like, you know, the personality that sort of gets like, I would say shaped by that kind of becomes unique over time too. It's like, you think about the type of person that you have to be good, be skilled, stick around so long that eventually... you know, all that stuff adds up and you're the one standing at the top. It's like, you know, that is a personality. It's like you can't not go through all that and not be something
I think, too, you also see that, like, the people trying to be, like, what Conor was or, like, a Gordon Ryan in jiu-jitsu, like, you can't just... That's not something, like... those guys can do that and get recognition because they also back it up, you know? Like, if you're talking trash and you're, like, getting under people's skin, but, like, but then, dang it, I'm, like, thinking of something to prove myself wrong. Like,
I was getting ready to go there.
About, like, there's all these guys that talk the trash and they get, like, and I'll just say it, like, AJ Agazarm is, like, known well for losing. Like, I feel like that's how people know him. It's like, he's a guy who talks trash, who doesn't tap, but he always loses. Like, he's not known for winning. And it's just like, there's a certain type of personality. I don't know where I was even going, because now I just proved myself wrong.
But I will say this, like, the people that do that, like, especially in jiu-jitsu, that, like, I always say, like, in jiu-jitsu, it's like, you can tell people you're good, but, like, if you train with them, they know. Like,
yeah.
I would, like, my thing that used to drive me crazy is, like, when I'd train with somebody and afterwards they'd want to tell me about somebody they'd beat or how well they do against this person or that person. I'd be like, bro, we've trained. I know you're garbage.
I know what you got. I know what you got.
Yeah, you can't tell me you're better than you are.
And you can tell the difference between somebody having a bad day and somebody just being trash.
Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah, I could tell they made a mistake and I caught them. And then afterwards, like, they were pretty tough or whatever. Yeah. Versus, like, the person where you're like, yeah, I'm just, like, everything's working. Like, all my stuff.
Yeah. You got no answers for me.
But when somebody does that and then they get, like, hyped or whatever, a lot of times those people are attached to other people, though.
Yeah, so
and
true.
I think that's a big part of it, to where it's like, you know, I don't know that the people that are giving them the attention, or the people that are hyping them, aren't necessarily paying attention to their records, or even when they compete and how they perform.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, I guess that's the lesson to learn, is, like, just attach yourself to people.
Clout chase all day.
Yes. Be a clout chaser, and that's how you get ahead in the game of fighting.
You know? That lesson's free.
Yep.
Courtesy of your friends at Not Fighting.
And, you know, something maybe I just stumbled upon as a lesson that I learned now as well. Like, I haven't been clout chasing enough, and I need to be doing that.
And that's why we're glad to announce that we are part of Jake Paul Jiu-Jitsu Association now. JPA.
Oh my God, we should. That's how I'm gonna get a fight. I'm gonna give him his black belt in jiu-jitsu.
That's not where I thought you were going with that, but yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna DM Jake Paul, like, right after I get done with this podcast,
and be like, hey, I got a business idea.
All these MMA fighters trying to get you to fight MMA. I can get you that black belt.
I can get you a black belt in jiu-jitsu. People will hate it so much. You'll love it.
You will love it.
You'll get so much attention, especially from Flow Grappling. It's true. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Between the post about him getting a black belt and then Gordon Ryan, like,
just like hanging out on the beach, because, you know, that's good jiu-jitsu
news. Yeah, but it is interesting because we've talked about this a little bit, but, you know, if somebody like Joe Rogan says that Gordon Ryan is the greatest of all time, how long till everybody else starts, you know, sort of echoing that or parroting it? And it doesn't even have to be people that are internal to the system. It can be the external ones as well.
Clear to say, like, we're not, like, trying to, like, say Gordon isn't great.
No, like, I won't even make the argument that he's not the greatest of all time, although I think that that's a different, like, that subject's real nuanced because of the nature of the sport.
Yeah.
But
he's, like, the best doing it right now.
I think so.
Minus, like, Felipe Pena's got his number.
Well, that's the thing, is, like, that's what I would make the case. I would say, like, there's an argument if he's the greatest right now. Pena, Galvao, like, those are kind of the two, you know? But even outside of that, it's one of those things where you look at it and you go, just like, because of that argument or whatever, like, you know, the greatest of all time thing becomes, like, even more, like, pronounced or whatever. And it's like, Joe Rogan's not paying attention to, like, competition jiu-jitsu.
No, he still thinks, like, as some random dudes that train under Eddie Bravo are, like, the best guards in jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, who is this person? He has a good guard? No. Never heard of him.
And that's the thing, is, like, I think where we start to get into the fight business is where this makes a lot more, like, this is something worth more of a conversation, because we've talked about it before. It's like, you know, the people that are good, it's like the cream rises to the top. You see it. It's like, who is it that you really care about? Like, where do you seek the validation for like your grade or not? But whenever it starts becoming something where it's like, I can't get fights, or like I'm not getting fights that I deserve, money that I should be paid, all that kind of stuff. Stipe Miocic, like, I can't get a rematch against the champion when I'm the greatest champion and maybe the greatest heavyweight of all time. Like, then it starts being very unfair. And this is a business that's meant to be based on a sport, which is guided by
results. What's the word?
Yeah, results, fairness. Yeah. Like, it's objective, right?
Yeah, it's like, there's clear lines to this thing. Although I would say, like, that's the difference between, like, an individualized sport versus a team sport, because it's like styles make fights. Like, just because it's never like, just because you beat this person doesn't mean that you could beat a person that they have beat. Like, and another person. I do think that is present in all sports. Like, one football team might beat one, like that kind of thing. But I do think in fighting, like, styles like really can dictate things. It's very different because you can. Yeah, like, it's a lot different.
It's more than just game plan and attributes necessarily. It's just like how certain things pair together. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, and it does make it sort of. I know it's frustrating for you, just like trying to get into it and fight. But I do think that we'll have news here fairly soon, and hopefully something that's exciting for everybody. You have anything else that you want to share about that? No, but follow us on Instagram for the memes, and keep your eyes out for news. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. And if you have a chance, leave us a review. And yeah, we've been doing this thing for over a year. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but like, around for Jena's transition into MMA and hopefully for her first fight. And
I mean, honestly, like, hopefully I fight MMA. That's the point I'm at right now.
See, like, it's sad, guys. She stopped training.
Am I gonna do this?
You want to knock out some depressed girl? Come fight Jena Bishop.
I'm trying, and nobody will fight me. So, like, maybe I'll just quit before I even start.
Yeah, become an Instagram influencer.
I mean, I'll do that too.
After giving Jake Paul his black belt.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna start an online jiu-jitsu belt business.
Thumbnail. All right. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to
Not Fighting.